Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome back to Canard Boulevard. If you remember about a month or so ago, I put a GTN 650 in my airplane, and I had a problem where I was doing an ILS approach, and the approach kicked off by itself when I crossed the final approach fix, and I've been trying to figure out what caused that ever since, and this video is what the problem was and how I fixed it. So you may recall this.
All right, there's Rawls, let's gear down.
Lorraine County traffic, Cirrus 504 Papa Golf, departing runway 7 to the north, Lorraine County.
And I just lost the glide slope. What the hell happened there? Yeah, something went very wrong there.
In case you didn't see that original video, this was the very first approach I did after installing the GTN 650 in the airplane. I was doing an ILS approach coupled with glide scope at Lorraine County Airport, and when I crossed the final approach fix and lowered the gear, the autopilot and everything kicked off with no warning, and well, gave me a warning saying, hey, it kicked off, but I was sitting there wondering what happened. So at first I thought, did something fail? Did I lose the glide slope? That was my first thought is, hey, I've lost the signal, I've lost the localizer, it kicked off. But then I went back and looked at the data logs and realized that how it was behaving was as if the GTN 650 had triggered itself to go into missed approach mode, but the G3X, which was flying the autopilot, was not. So the G3X was still trying to fly the approach, but the GTN 650 said, nope, we're done. And it just kicked off. Of course, the G3X says, I've got no more IFR navigation signal coming from the 650. We're just going to go into roll pitch mode instead of coupled approach mode. It was kind of surprising how that happened, and I looked in the logs and didn't see any obvious problems until I looked at the amperage. I determined the instant I put the gear down, I saw the amperage kick up on the data logs, and that is the instant that the autopilot and everything kicked off. So I thought that can't be coincidence. I worked quite a bit with the Garmin people, the Garmin support people. This went all the way up, and they had a look at my data logs. I talked to a lot of very smart people, and the consensus was that it was something to do with the gear kicking off like that. Electrical disturbance, it seems to have something to do with the TOGA switch, and that's when the light went on. Now I have a TOGA switch on my side stick. I can press that, and that puts the airplane into takeoff or go around mode. If I'm on the ground, it switches it into takeoff mode, and it pitches the flight director up, enables the flight director, and so on. When you're flying and you hit that switch, it puts the autopilot into go around mode, which again pitches up, and you apply power and it flies up and away. The idea being that if you are flying an approach and you are going to go around, you press that button and it will pitch up the flight director, and you can follow that, or the autopilot will follow it. Either way. That's been in the airplane all along. I also wired in the GTN 650 because you can sequence it into the missed approach mode using the TOGA button. So if you're on an approach and you hit the TOGA button, the 650 says, oh, we're going missed, and it immediately sequences into the missed approach procedure rather than trying to continue the approach. So I thought, well, obviously you want to have it do both. So I hooked it up to both, and that's where the problem lays. Now I'm going to get a little nerdy for the electronic guys here, but how that switch signals to these units to do that is it switches at ground. So there's a wire coming out of each of those, and it switches it to ground, and that tells those two units, hey, we're going into missed approach mode or go around mode. The problem is that there is a slight electrical differential between those units, and more importantly between their grounds, because they are hooked up to different circuits. The problem is when I engage the landing gear, that starts moving it down. That's an electric motor, and when electric motors start up, they draw a tremendous amount of current, like a surge. And the consensus is that this surge was enough to put just enough of a signal on the ground that there was a little bit of ground differential between those units, and it saw the differential in the TOGA wires between those two units, and it was just enough to trigger the go TOGA mode in the GTN 650. That's why I couldn't duplicate it. I tried over and over and over to get this to happen again. It only ever happened the once, but it was such a spurious thing that just from the gear going down, just that one time happened, put a little bit of a spike in the ground differential between the units that it saw that spike as, hey, we're going around. So how did I fix it? I put a relay in. So now the TOGA switch actually actuates a relay, and the relay then connects a ground to both of those things. And when the TOGA switch is not pressed, those wires are not connected to anything. So there's no ground differential between them because they're not physically connected anymore. So the only time those wires see a ground is when I push the button, the relay closes both those contacts because it's a DP-DT relay. It gives them both a ground, and then you let go of the button, it opens up, both those units now sequence into go-around mode, and everything's good. So that's what I did to fix this problem. I realized today that I never followed up to explain what that problem was and how we came about finding out what the problem was and how we fixed it. Anyway, I know this is a little bit of a nerdy video, but I just thought I would do this for those of you who really enjoy this kind of stuff. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
Killdeer update. It's another week and a half gone by, and mom killdeer is still on the nest, so we have high hopes we're going to have success this time.
3 days later.
Killdeer update. Unfortunately, looks like another fail. I was here yesterday. It was pouring rain. Mom was sitting on the nest protecting her eggs. Today, no mom, no eggs. The nest is empty. Looks like something got the eggs again, unfortunately.